I had been sent to Korea from my university a few years ago. They told me for my major, I had to go somewhere in Asia. And my friend had really talked up Korea for me. I knew nothing about it, but I decided what the hell. And I embarked on a semester-long trip. I had only had one serious boyfriend in my life, who I had broken up with a few months prior. I also don't enjoy one-night stands, and wasn't digging the dudes at the clubs in Seoul. But I still wanted to have some sort of romantic experience, I suppose. So my friend recommended I use this dating app to meet English-speaking Koreans. That way I could meet someone and experience the actual dating culture. I thought I'm young, so why not? I was just so eager to have new experiences. Maybe it sounds dumb to try dating in a foreign country, but it worked out for me eventually. Just not the first date. I met him on a dating app after being in Seoul about 3 weeks. Let's call him Tim. I still didn't know the culture or city very well and was a bit naive about everything. He eagerly wanted to meet for a date after talking to me, and he seemed nice. I should have asked more questions, and I should have noticed that he was not giving me many details about himself. Tim was a guy a bit older than me, but claimed he was a college student. I assumed he had done his military time, all men in Korea have to, and returned to school. We talked for a bit and decided to meet for a tea date near the school I went to. He wanted to come to my dorm originally to pick me up, but I live in an all-women's dorm, and I didn't want him to know exactly where I lived since we were still strangers. So instead, I insisted we meet at the main town center near the subway. He really didn't like this idea, which looking back was a red flag, but eventually I insisted. The night of the date, I waited an hour for this guy. He was very late. Tim weirdly claimed he just wanted to make me wait. I thought he was kidding and messaged him a laughing emoji, assuming he was just lost. When he finally arrived, he was much smaller than I thought, but a man's height has never been something I care about much. He was also quite thin. Maybe I let my guard down because I didn't see him as physically threatening to me, which was a mistake in the end. Right off the bat, he was way too touchy with me, and breathed creepy and heavy. I was so off-put with his demeanor. I'm usually very tolerant with different personality types, but this was very odd to me. I had been told that Korean men would be polite and not so touchy on the first date. He was also dressed oddly, like in business attire for a date, but I thought that maybe it's just a Korean thing. Again, I was dumb and knew jack shit about the culture. Then the first thing he said to me was, "You're not as white as I thought you were." I thought this was a translation error, but his English was near perfect. So I asked for clarification, and he said what he meant. "I thought you would be more white. Your skin is darker than I thought, and your eyes aren't as green. Are you pure European?" Now I was officially weirded out. First of all, I'm pretty much as white as you can get. I'm Irish and Scandinavian, so white as hell, basically. So the fact he thought I could have possibly been any whiter was funny. And why did he care in the first place anyway? Why does my skin color matter to this guy? And why is he bringing it up? He said about 3 times on the date how he wished I had greener eyes, and every time I would just reply, "Well, maybe my online photos make me look brighter," and brushed it off as him being nervous and trying to start a conversation. Isn't it funny the dumb excuses you make for people when you're panicked? When we arrived at the tea place, I tried to order a basic raspberry tea, and he stopped me and told me I had to have this special tea. I thought it was weird he wanted to choose my tea for me, but in my head I brushed it off once again. He really insisted I drink only this tea type, and I just agreed. These small details become weirder later. After tea, he asked if we could look around my school. It was dark, but the school is very well lit, so I agreed. And the whole time we walked around, he would randomly stop and grab me for long hugs. At first I let it happen, but then I stopped him, and he just kept trying. He kept grabbing me and breathing hard into my neck. It was so awkward. He also would not tell me any personal details about himself. I asked so many questions, desperately trying to distract from all the awkward grabbing and to try and get to know him. But he would never tell me anything. He even said at one point, "I'm a mysterious man," like a movie line. He also said something like, "You look so much like my favorite movie character," and I asked who. But he said that I would have to figure it out on my own. Finally, he said, "I want to go to a dark area." And in my head, I screamed, "Hell no." At this point, I wanted the date over fast. He somehow knew there was a wooded area behind my campus, and he said we should go there. I said no, and that I wanted to stay near the main campus in town. But he kept pushing. Finally, he grabbed my arm and started dragging me there. He said, "I can't let anyone see." And I started to panic. I finally ripped my arm away and just demanded we leave and go back to the main road immediately. Looking back, I don't know why I didn't ask for help or get angry. Maybe I was scared. But I just began to book it back to the main road, and he followed. We ended up in front of a hospital near the center of town, and I told him it was time for him to go. I made some excuse, and he was pleading with me to stay. I told him we could meet the next day. I lied, and I would message him. I just wanted to get away at this point. I was pretending it was all okay, just so he would leave. Suddenly, I think he's leaning in to kiss me, and I immediately think, oh God, no. But it was so much worse. Instead, I feel pain in my face. It takes me a second to realize he was biting my face. It was like a dog. I had never felt the sensation before. He leaned his head sideways and bit me on my nose and cheek, as hard as he could. I screamed and pushed him away from me. His face looked so freaky, and I barely had time to react in words. Instead, I ran up the sidewalk until I saw a convenience store on the right. I ran to the back of the store and bent down to start crying. The man who owned the store started to yell at me, but I couldn't explain my situation. I just begged him in English to let me stay. I ended up having to buy a popsicle to stick around. God, I wish I had learned some Korean by then. I guess Tim didn't follow me. I peered outside the store and didn't see him. I texted a friend and waited for them to get me to take me back to my dorm. On the way, I messaged Tim and basically told him to stay away from me. I told him he was a creep, that he shouldn't bite women, and something along the lines of me calling the police. And then I blocked him. I was so scared to walk around my school area after that. I was so afraid he would find me somehow. I am so thankful I never let him pick me up at my dorm. I called my mom to tell her what happened when suddenly she said, "Wait, what did he ask you?" She then put some details together and realized that all of these weird things had to do with the 50 Shades of Grey books. At first, I thought she was just being silly and overthinking a bad date. I thought she was joking. But oh God, she was right. She had recently seen the movie or read the book of something and knew the details. The eye color and way he dressed, and the tea he made me drink and the random lines he said. It all matches the books and movies. For his dirty little fantasy. My mom thinks he picked me because I look like the girl in that movie to him. It explains why he was so fixated on my appearance. And his whole thing with the biting and trying to dominate me. Even if it wasn't his intention, I later learned that there are some few creeps who seek out foreign girls to dominate and have sex with as like a prize. They call it riding the white horse or something along those lines. On a happier note, this bad experience didn't stop me. I eventually met someone else in Korea, and we ended up falling in love. We even did the whole long-distance thing, and now I'm living in Korea studying and working, hoping to marry soon. So I guess I didn't let bad, creepy guys stop my life. As for Tim, let's not meet. It's been years, but I will still kick your ass if I see you, and I won't have to bite. My friend told me this horrific story yesterday, and it has to be the scariest thing I ever heard, so I felt like sharing it to remind everyone to stay safe and cautious. This happened to a friend of our friend not too long ago. So, this girl matched with a guy on Tinder and went on a couple of dates with him. On the first 2 dates, they went for coffee on walks outside. She really liked him, thought he was friendly, good-looking, etc., and thought they clicked. For the 3rd date, the guy suggested she should come over to his place to have some wine. She agreed because she felt safe and comfortable enough to do so at this point. So the time comes and she goes over to his place and he pours her a glass of wine. Things seem to go well. They joke around and enjoy a nice talk. After a while, she starts feeling funny. Now, luckily, this girl had already been roofied once before, so she immediately recognized the effects once they kicked in. She was extremely clever in this situation and pretended she was feeling fine. She told him as cheerfully and energetically as possible that she was quickly going to use the toilet, as to seem like nothing was off. Once she was in the toilet, she locked the door and immediately called the police. She told them she was drugged, locked in the toilet, and that they needed to come get her out of there. Pretty soon after she passes out, she awakes by the police but is still very drugged, so kind of slides in and out of consciousness. All she remembers is the police putting a bag over her head as they carry her out of there. She was saved. A few days later, she is asked to come down to the police station to give her declaration of events. After doing this, she asks whether she remembers the police putting a bag over her head correctly, or if it was imagined due to the drugs, or what was up with that. They tell her that they indeed put a bag over her head because they decided it would have been too traumatizing for her to see as they carried her out of there what he had prepared and set up for her in the living room. This sends shivers down my spine. The guy ended up in jail, and to this day she doesn't know what he had had in mind for her, but it's clear this was a very messed up, incredibly scary situation that could have ended horribly. Please, please, please always let someone know when you plan on going on a Tinder date, even if you feel safe, even if it's not your first date. Always ask a friend to call and check up on you during and after to let someone know you're safe. 1 year ago, when I just turned 18, I decided to download a dating app. I have been single my entire life and thought the only way for me to meet the man of my dreams would be through an app like that, because I don't get outside of my house a lot. The only times I do, it's for school, and I'm pretty sure if you'd ask about me to one of my classmates, they'd say, "Who?" So I gave myself a pretty nice profile, and that's when I got my first match. Ethan. 6'2", 29, big blue eyes, dark brown hair, pretty fit, cute face, the man of my dreams. He texted me first, and after a few chats, I knew he was the one. Apparently never had a girlfriend, and he had an awesome personality. We went on our first date at this fine food place, and we had a really good time. He made me laugh, smile, complimented me. The perfect first date. As he was driving me back home, he told me that he had a tendency to rush things, and that if he seemed too forward, I should tell him right away. It got a bit quiet, so I turned on the radio. Another woman was recently found dead in the neighborhood's forest. Her throat had been brutally mutilated, and her feet to her ankles were not found on her corpse. The suspect has yet to be identified. Any who would have a lead on him is That's when he turned it off. A bit depressing, he said. After the first date was a second one, then a third, then a fourth. That's when he asked me to go to his place. I accepted, of course. He had his own apartment, unlike me still living at my parents' place, so it was just the both us of. It started off great, squeezed in his arms, rubbing my feet, with a bucket of popcorn on our laps, and a good movie playing on the TV. He then grabbed my face and pulled it towards his. I stopped his lips from touching mine by blocking it with my hand. I apologized and told him he was being a bit quick for me. He screamed, throwed the bucket of popcorn in my face, smashed the TV remote on the floor, and fell on the ground. Silence. He starts crying. I messed it up again. Now you think I raped you? You'll make a complaint. I'll get caught. I stop him and tell him none of it is true. We're back in his car, driving me back home. I watched the few stars showing in the sky without giving him directions. He knew the way by heart now. Still, he turned at the wrong intersection. I whispered it. What did you say now? I repeated a bit louder. Silence. Oh, you're right. There's a dead-end street a bit further. I'll turn back there. He turned right, left, seared 8, right, stopped. Around us were only trees now. I asked him why he stopped. No gas left. Shit. I'll get the gas in my trunk. Stay still. He unlocked his door and got out. I looked at my phone. 23:35. I texted my mom, telling her I'll be getting back later than I was supposed to. Not delivered. I had no Wi-Fi signal. He's not getting back in the car. I thought about calling a roadside assistance, but I didn't know the number and couldn't look online. So I called 911. Hello, 911. What's your emergency? I explained to the responder. I have your localization. Silence. Miss, lock the doors of the car you're in right now. So I did. Do not let the man you're with get inside the car. Am I clear? I understood. I did even more when I looked at the driver's side. The tank was full. Ethan knocked on my side, smelling, but not like he usually did. He tried to open the locked door. The smile vanished. Police will soon be with you, miss. He looked at my phone and stared in my eyes. He walked away, in that forest, with a knife and rope along with him. The dark of the trees soon made him unable to perceive. He was found later that night. He cut his own throat with the knife he held. I wonder what I would be right now if I knew the roadside assistance number.